Hello, all you gentle folk of the world. I realize my voice is as thick as pea soup, and the reason for that is I woke up at about 4:30 in the morning. It is now, well, it's still before 6 o'clock. It says it's 5:53. And as interesting as the time is, I have something I think slightly more interesting to talk about that I can find. Um, Yesterday I sort of got in machete mode. I sort of got my anger got was getting the best of me. But it is kind of a sad thing. It's sort of like a turtle being angry when it's flipped over on its back. But hmm, the situation I was involved in. Let's see how I can do this with maintaining people's anonymity. I had agreed to loan a person $20. Now I had already given my word that I would loan this person $20. I find out this $20, I ask them and they're honest with me and they know me that I am more or less a man of my word. I mean, no one can say that I think to 100% degree, especially someone that talks as much as me. But they told me the truth that they were going to go buy some crack with it. So I'm like, well, that's your ball game, you know. I already agreed to loan you the money. What you do with it is your business. But I loan out $20 at a time. If I don't get the $20 back, I don't care what you tell me or what excuse you give me. You're not getting any more than that out of me. And if I don't get my $20 back, you're not getting any more money. So they're like, of course, okay. And it kind of reminds me of the Bootsy story, but I don't want to digress into that. But anyways, so I give this person the $20. I get a call from their significant other. I have no idea any of this is going to happen, mind you. No clue. So I unboxed the scooter, which I dropped the battery out of it, and I made a total mess of it and had to, it weighed 124 pounds, and with my leg being like it is, it's difficult for me to handle that much weight. But I just cut the box off of it and I got all the parts out, and it was just a total mess of styrofoam because it was really stuck in there, and I just had to like rip it out in pieces and stuff, and just pieces of styrofoam and giant cardboard box all over my living room. Which at one point, I haven't tested it out to see if it works. It lights up and everything. It should work. But at one point, because my legs are fucked up, there wasn't enough room to walk, and I bumped my coffee table on which sits my printer that I just bought. That's brand new, and my printer slid off of the table and onto the floor after ricocheting off of an amplifier, a guitar amplifier, and then it lit up. But anyways, back to the story. That's just stuff that happens around the story. So like, this individual's been square dealing with me, and I've had no problem with him. So I'm like, yeah. I was like, I can loan you some money. But I got the $20 rule, and he's like, no more than that. And I said, no more than that. So all I have in the house is a 50, and so far the guy's been trustworthy with me. Because when I met him, I had almost killed somebody with a machete, and that kind of leaves an impression on people. So I was like, here's my 50. You take it down to the gas station, get a pack of cigarettes. Me being a tobacco addict, I wanted one cigarette. He, of course, gave me three because he's a smoker, and to smokers, more is always better. I didn't protest. I took the three, and he gave me my change, and he proceeded to talk to me. I looked out for him because I knew that there was something, like I didn't know what he was driving. And he's pulling up with somebody I never saw before, getting out of the passenger seat. So I'm like, what does this mean? I soon found out what that meant is, um, I man, this is some sordid stuff, but, people do not, generally speaking, uh, will sell you crack on credit. If I may reference the movie Menace to Society, you may know the scene that I'm talking about. Um, so this guy's like, his significant other is in Dutch to a crack dealer for $80. He's trying to raise the money. This is the story I got anyway. But I'm like, well, it's not my problem, you know. $20 at a time. I said I smoked some of the cigarettes, so best I can do for you is 25. Cigarettes cost $5, and that's it. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, he explained to me that the guy that dropped him off was a drug mule. Now, you know the problems I had here and how much trouble I had driving out meth dealers and crack dealers and whatnot, and the issues that I've had if you're listening to this. So I'm like, he's talking to me, and then he gets a phone call, and he goes, "Is he out there?" And I look, and the same truck's pulled out there, and this is when my temper goes off. And I said, I'm listening. You go out there and you tell that motherfucker that my best friend is a Kansas City cop for 30 years, and I've driven meth dealers out of here. I said I drove a meth business out of here. I drove a crack business out of here. And next time I see his fucking truck out there, I'm going to take down numbers so I can read license plates. And I said, you tell him that. I don't know what he told him, but he went out there and he talked to the guy. And but I was close. I can't walk. If I could walk at all, even with the cane, I'm out there and I'm talking to the guy in the truck myself. It's like, don't you ever come back here. I'm at that point. I gotta take fucking Valium. I gotta take a blood pressure pill. I got a bad heart and stuff, but I'm like, I got that irrational, crazy temper. And it's like, motherfuckers, man, these people get me involved in this fucking bad drug business. Bullshit again. It's like everything is just bad. It's like the boat thing is bad, and it's just like one bad thing after another, so I really lost my temper. And I told the guy, man, I said, I'm not fucking kidding. You go out there and you tell that guy if I ever see that fucking truck out there again, I'm taking down his license plate number. And that's it. I said, I ain't putting up with this shit. And he knew I was serious. And he's like, okay. And he went out there. And the first time the truck pulled up, it was just him and the guy. And the guy, like the drug mule guy, he waited. Like he drove around, I guess, and picked up his crack whore. And then he waited outside the front of the building. He called the guy and he said, well, in other words, you get any money out of this guy? And, he was like impatient about the whole thing. And I'm like, I said, what are we talking about? I said, you're not talking about somebody who's not unfamiliar with these matters. And I said, you got to understand, I got uncles that, I've had other people that I've known that got thrown in jail. Over exactly what that guy is, which is a drug mule. And I said, I knew a drug mule that got thrown in jail. And he's like, I said, I've dealt with the crack type shit before. And I said, you're not talking to no rookie. And I said, there ain't nothing you can tell me that I don't know about or that I haven't heard before. So I want you to speak frankly to me. I don't want to hear no fucking bullshit out of you. You know, I mean, I was gone. I was gone into a bad, bad place. Which is very bad for me with the CRPS. And so, he told me, and I said, is there going to be any muscle involved? In other words, like, if you don't come up with this money, is your significant other going to get beaten? Are you going to get beaten? Is there going to be blood spilled? He's like, well, he's a black guy. And I said, that don't tell me shit. I said, my uncles were white, and they put like a dozen people in the ground. I said, that don't tell me shit. He's like, well, basically, like, said something inconsequential, which, that I don't even remember. But it was more or less probably, I don't know. But who knows what's going on with that kind of shit, because all you get is lies. You're talking about that kind of a drug thing, or even with drunks, you can't believe nothing. You can't believe nothing that anybody says. So, the guy has gone out of here. I wanted to help the guy out because I liked the guy. So, I had work for him to do. It's like, I won't loan you money, but if you do some work for me, I said I can hook you up with some more money, because obviously I got a mess in here. It's going to be hard for me to clean up, because while I was unboxing the scooter, I didn't do damage to my leg, but my leg hates everything. My leg hates existence more than I do right now. So, I was in a lot of pain. But yeah, if I could walk at all, if I could even walk with a cane, I'm going out there and I'm getting in the drug mule's face. And, like, I get like that. I get irrational, you know. Because, sometimes certain evils must be confronted like that. Like, I'm a nice guy, I put up with a lot of shit. But there's certain things that you just can't put up with, you know. And I'm putting two and two together about how does someone get indebted to crack dealers. I mean, what exactly is going on here? Am I being lied to in the first place? And is this guy just scoring money? I don't know. You just don't know with that substance. But one thing you don't know is there's no such thing as crack credit. It doesn't work that way. It's not like there's crack credit cards from Walmart that you can use. So that's part of the reason that I didn't sleep well, is because, like, my horrible, horrible temper got aroused. Sometimes I thank God that I'm all racked up like I am, because of the way I get. Probably be in jail. I don't know. There's a movie that I just watched that's called The Sisters Brothers, where the one brother says the other brother, he's like, we have our father's evil blood coursing through our veins, don't you? And that's why we're so good at what we do, which is they're professional killers. Sometimes I think that it's almost a hereditary trait, like a gene that makes me like that. But of course, I'm more of a environment over heredity type of guy, just because the environment of violence that I was raised in. But I was gonna have the guy come back and do some work, but I got worked up, and I called him and I said, "Listen," I said, "I'm way more worked up and upset than I thought I was." Or I was like, "Don't come back here." That's all I said, and then I just left it on his answering machine message, and he didn't come back here. And then the boat guy called me later on, and I had asked him a question. He didn't answer it, but he asked this other question. And I said, "Listen, I am in way too vile of a mood. It's best we end this conversation now." And we part ways. He's like, "Okay." I just hung the phone up. So yesterday was a bad day. And I had a bad night. You can hear it in my voice. And and I'm drinking coffee, thinking about George Orwell, because somebody brought him up. I'm thinking, I just bought some books, which I have all these ambitions, of course. No health, and no non-benzo sanity to read these books, but I like to read these books. But I think the most underrated philosopher in the history of man is this dude named Eric Fromm, whose seminal work is Escape from Freedom, written in 1941 in the wake of the rise of fascism in Italy and Nazism. And he saw where Europe was headed, and he was like trying to figure out, like, why are these people, following these trends or these courses? What is it in people that makes them willing to follow some idiot with a stupid fucking mustache? That's just a little weakling motherfucker with one ball. Yeah. So I woke up and I was thinking about those books, and I'm like, the most influential books that I've read in my life. So I was like, well, I'd like to read those, but I'd like to do a lot of things, like go out there and get in that drug mule's face yesterday that I can't do. It's very difficult when you're trapped in a body that won't let you do the things, won't let you be who you are. And sometimes I think that's a good thing, or there'd be some, or I'd be in jail because of my temper. But yeah, it took me a while to calm down. I watched a favorite. I wouldn't even call it a horror movie, but it's just called You're Next. Which, if you've never seen the movie You're Next, it's a great fucking movie. I mean, if you don't mind, it's not like gory bloodshed type of movie. But if you don't mind a little violence, that's a great fucking movie. It's like, for me, it's a top 25 movie all time. I'm squinting because I think my eye is watering and hurting me. But yeah, so here I am involved in drug nonsense yesterday. Like all I want to do is be left alone. I'm like, that's just further reason for me to move the fuck out of this city that I was talking about before. Get away from my landlord and just get away from this city. What's the ironic part is this city is a nice little city. It just happens that, my neighbors would tell me, like, this is kind of a bad neighborhood. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is a good neighborhood with a bad landlord in here. I said, we're the bad neighborhood. The house that I live in is the bad neighborhood. The few people that I know constitute the bad neighborhood. That drug tide, with meth and crack, it's always threatening to roll into any area. It's a plague and it's a scourge. And it's a human weakness that for people to run from reality and emotional pain. Sometimes it's not about that, but I would say at least 90% of the time it's about that. Sometimes it starts out recreationally, and then you get to physical dependence, and then you get the addiction. But really, I think it's emotionally damaged people because that are running, and then there's the predators, sociopathic, like cold-blooded, do not give a fuck predators that prey on human weakness. And I've seen it all go down before. And being an older gentleman, I've known people that have gone to prison over it. And I've watched it destroy people. Very familiar with, not familiar with heroin very much and the opiate crisis, but I'm very familiar with cocaine and what cocaine does in all its forms. It's funny to me that people like to say cocaine, because cocaine, visions up little files and people snorting shit, so they'll admit to cocaine and not call it crack is nasty and dirty, but cocaine is somehow beautiful and clean. But yeah, can't do much else. I picked up the book and I read a little bit and I realized that my voice is torturesome. And yeah, I'm still under the influence of gabapentin that I have to take now for my knee. And I did cancel my appointment with my psychiatrist on the 11th and explained to him. It's kind of funny. It's one of the few places where they want a reason for you rescheduling. Every other place, they never ask you for a reason. This is the only place in my life where they always ask you. We have to have a reason why you're rescheduling. I said, here's your reason. I had an operation on March 7th, didn't go too well, and I got to have a leg operation at the Cleveland Clinic. And walking is dangerous for me, and I need to stay off my leg. And I said, do you need to know anything else? Because I was already in a fucked up mood. They're like, no. Oh, I'll pass that on. And I'll make a note of that. She's like, I hope you feel better, blah, blah, blah. You know. Goddamn, do I get evil. It's like you wouldn't know it, you know. Such the people that don't really know me well, they're like, wow, he's such a sweetheart and he's such a nice guy. And I got that evil blood coursing through my veins. And I did find out something interesting about the bucket of blood bar that I was talking about, because I talked to my policeman friend and I said, did you ever have any dealings with the Palms? He knows everybody knew that bar back in the day. The funny part is I Googled that and there's like nothing. I could find nothing about that bar. It's like it never existed. Nobody wants to remember it. And it's almost like they had like a Cosa Nostra code of silence thing going on in there, where you had like, you had murders going on in there. And like I said, there's bodies. Nobody knows how many bodies buried in the woods behind there. And I found out the reason for that. It was sort of interesting, because I was talking to my cop friend about it, and I said, did you ever have to go there? And he's like, no. I was like, why not? And he said, well, you got to understand, it's between jurisdictions. He said, it's not in the township that I was responsible for. It's not really in the township that this other township. I don't know why I'm being secretive, but it's just a habit I've developed, for trying not to name names and whatnot. But he said there was only 2 patrol cars that were responsible for anything that. In other words, if somebody in the Palms called the police when somebody was getting murdered or their head bashed in or beaten to death, there was only two cars on patrol that were part of that jurisdiction. And he said they didn't want to go there. They didn't want no part of it, because it's going to be two patrol cars against the mafia, basically. Because my uncles were there and their friends were there, all murderous cutthroats, including my father. And so it was like an outlaw bar, and that's why all that stuff went down in there. It just kind of fell into a free zone. He said because my dude was a cop in that area for 30 years, and he was like, it's just the way it was. And he said, I want to tell you something else. He said he said, I was in a car because I was saying, like, if something goes down over a situation I was talking about, I said all the cops can do is come and pick up the pieces. He said, let me tell you something. He said, I was in a cruiser a lot of times, and we get a call to certain areas and stuff, and the speedometer on the vehicle I was riding in would go from 45 to 25. They didn't want to show up. He said, or they'd make a right turn instead of a left turn. And when he was younger, and idealistic, he'd be like pissed off about that. He'd be, and I don't. He was like, it's that way. And the older cop would look at him and he said, I got my own way of getting there. But really it's like they didn't want no part of it. That's how bad Canton was back in the day. He also told me an interesting story, which I think I can relate, and he wouldn't be offended by me relating this. But he said there was a guy on the force, because you did not mess with Canton police. They knew they were in the sixth worst city per capita crime-wise in the country. They did not play. You did not mess with Canton cops in the 70s. You just didn't. And this is the day before, camera phones. I think it might even been before camcorders. So, there wasn't nobody photographing somebody getting their ass fucking beat down. So he tells me this story. He said, one time I prevented a murder. He never told me this story before. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, there was this policeman. He's like, he was in his 50s. He's like, he was an older dude. And every time I saw the dude, all he'd do is just be sitting there calmly reading a newspaper, drinking a cup of coffee. He said he is almost like, looked like a pacifist. He's like, calm all the time. He said, but I never rode with the dude. And then one day he gets a call over the radios, because they did have radios back then. And he's like, yeah, I was sitting in my car, and I saw a car go by, and I knew it was my daughter's car. And a black guy was driving it. And he's like, I know it's stolen. He said, I'm in pursuit. So what happened is he finally caught the guy. The guy pulled over, and he just looked at the guy, and he knew, some really bad violence was coming his way. So he fled. The suspect, the guy who stole the car, made the mistake of stealing a cop's daughter's car, and he tried to do a Briar Rabbit routine and run into some brush. He's like, he saw like the brambles that the guy pulled him out of, but he was crawling in these brambles trying to get away, and the large older cop, because he put him at 6'3" and about 220 pounds, grabbed the black dude by the foot, and by the time my cop friend and the guy and the policeman he was with arrived on the scene, the older cop was literally, this is his words, jumping up and down on his neck, trying to break his neck. He has already got done with the beating part and was going to murder the guy. So they stopped him from doing that. And I said, well, did he get in trouble over it? He goes, no, we wrote it up as he apprehended the suspect and detained him until we got there. That's what the city was like that I grew up in. I grew up in the Palms was actually we would that Bucket of Blood bar. We would walk to go fishing, and we would fish across from it, because there was a lake across from it that was private, and we would trespass at this lake and go fishing. So a lot of times we would be fishing probably within, I don't know, 200 yards. I'd say about fishing within about 200 yards of people being beaten and killed. But yeah, that's why no cops went to break up, went down there And the way my cop friend said about it, he said it's before um, the drug gangs and the drugs really took off and became the issue. He said the worst violence was always biker violence. He's like it was usually involved biker gangs, and those were the bloodiest and most violent stuff that happened. And and I told him the story about. I quoted my dad as saying that there was bikers used to try occasionally make the mistake. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie A Bronx Tale, but it was a real life Bronx Tale without all the music playing in the background and the cutesy fight and whatever like that. Bikers would occasionally, you know, we're big bad bikers, blah blah blah. They would occasionally try to go into the poems and try to take it over, with similar results to the scene in the Bronx Tale, except for real. And as I told him the story about my one uncle. Um, as my dad put it, kicking that guy's head like a football, and then my dad sticking a knife in a guy's belly and telling him, like, you take one step towards what's happening out there, and I'm going to open you up like a ripe watermelon. And you know, and and my and my cop friend was like, oh yeah, he's like that's completely how it used to be. He said, and nobody wanted to go there. He said no cops wanted to go there, so it was like, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a lawless area. It was like, um, I was called a bucket of blood bar. I mean, it was just a. But yeah, bikers would come in there occasionally and try to take it over. And like I told you the story of 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was driving with the guy, and he was said that my uncle Bobby and a friend of his laid out 6 bikers and left them in pools of blood with broken jaws or split heads with pool cues. But yeah, yesterday I was like that. I was like, it's like, yeah, I wonder if that is a hereditary thing, because even as messed up as I am, I wanted to go out there and confront that dude and like tell that dude, don't ever fucking come around here again. I don't give a fuck. And I told his friend to go out there and tell him that. And the only reason why I told, not his friend, but I told the guy that was getting me involved in it. I said, you tell that guy, man, don't ever come around here again. If I ever see his vehicle again, I'm taking down license plates, numbers. And I said, you tell him I've run meth trades out of here. I've run crack trades out of here before. And I said, I don't ever want to see that truck out there again. I wanted to go out there and I wanted to tell him myself, but I can't freaking walk, you know. And believe me, even with my leg all messed up, it's like it was all messed up during the machete incident. It was all messed up when I called out the whole building and said, you think you're the only motherfuckers that can yell in this building. And I called out the whole building, and there was a 25-year-old dude that I just heard his voice. He wouldn't come down. And that story with Bootsy. But yeah, that was very upsetting. So yesterday was not a good day for me, because that makes me sick when I get that angry because of the CRPS. And yeah, I got that fucking temper, man. It don't make no sense. And the way I explained it best is from an old video where I said that told that story about how it was wintertime, and I had shoes on I had never worn before that weren't good in the snow. And somebody was breaking bad with my niece and didn't know I was in the car. This large woman ordering my niece around. Meanwhile, my niece been in the army and is a bad little bitch. Not nobody you want to mess with. And she's laughing it off and stuff, but I got pissed off. I was under a lot of stress at the time, and I got pissed off, and I jumped out of the car, and I was like, "You think you're the only person who owns the motherfucking street, lady?" And with my big voice, and man, that woman, like, whoa, she didn't know I was in the car because it was dark outside. She was like, "I'm gonna get my husband to come out," and I said, "You tell him to get his ass out here. I'll be waiting." And the whole time I'm making these threats, I can't even stand up. I'm sliding around in the snow and I'm holding on to the roof of the car yelling threats and shit. Because when he does come out of here, man, I'm going to fall down and I'm going to chew his Achilles tendons off. You know, I can't even stand up. I'm making these threats. And like, that's the kind of temper I have. That's like the perfect illustration of the type of illogical uh, temper that I have, where it's like my life means nothing to me. And yeah, actually that saved me from a lot of fights because people can see that in you. Like this motherfucker is crazy and he doesn't give a shit what happens to him, you know. And if they're not like that too, you know, or if they're not like experienced, even if they are experienced, or like, you know, this guy, I'm either gonna have to kill this guy or he's gonna kill me. You know, that takes it to a whole nother level. The other story I told is when I was fishing and that guy was going to throw me out of this place fishing. And I just walked up to him and looked him in the eye and I said, you know, and he was like, whoa, you know, he's like, whoa. And it's like, I have no illusions about myself about being some Bruce Lee great fighter or anything like that. I'm just nuts, man. Just this crazy person when I get like that. And people don't want to deal with crazy, generally speaking. There's plenty of times, like I've said, where I've backed down from fights and shit, but yesterday wasn't going to be one of them. Because I'm like, I'm getting involved in this. I'm sitting in my house, minding my own business. These people are supposed to be my friends. They're getting me involved in all this fucking drug nonsense. And it's like, you know, I was not good. I was not good. Yeah. And now I got to pay for it with a bad night's sleep. As you can see, it's there's no light streaming in from that window now. I think there's a little crack, a little slit there. Dawn's breaking at 6:30. That means summer's on its way, so dawn's starting to break around here. Um, yeah, I that scooter looks like a toy. It just doesn't look. It looks poorly made. I haven't put it together yet. I just got the parts all in the living room. That's what I was gonna throw money that guy's way for before things went south. Is like get the boxes and all the styrofoam out of my living room and put this together, and I'll toss 20. It's worth $20 for me not to have to mess with it, you know. And um, I don't know that guy as far as like whether what his. I know he drinks and smokes. I mean, I don't know what his usage level is as far as heavier substances. He's trying to collect a debt for somebody else that somebody else owes. Crack credit. I don't know how, like, unfortunately, worldly wise, a person you are, if you know what that means. But I just watched the movie Menace to Society, or just look up some YouTube clips from it, then you'll see what I mean. I don't want to talk about that stuff. I don't know what I want to talk about right now. I'm talking about the fact I need a shave. I don't take very good care of myself anymore. It's really not my fault. There's not a lot to take care of. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff I have to deal with while I'm going through withdrawal, you know? It's like I get the opposite of emotional support. I get drama. I get family members jumping down my throat or unsympathetic at the best I can hope for from my family members is I have one family member that'll drop some groceries off at my house sometimes, and like mostly the best I can hope for is neutrality, unsympatheticness. That's like the most I can hope for. Sometimes I'll get, as far as the benzo thing is, nobody has um, come out and, criticized me for it or anything like that, but they're not sympathetic to it either. And like I told my sister, I said, you would rather, instead of worrying about me, you'd rather do you at the expense of me. And I said, I can't have that. I can't live with that. I'm going to tell you something that maybe I shouldn't tell you right now, which is uh, I got evil yesterday. I mean, I just got evil. So I think all people are a mixture of good and evil. And, I was thinking about it. I had talked to my brother a couple nights before, and I guess my sister has a bad leg now. And that's what broke me down was my leg. I have all these other problems, but what broke me down was the fact that I was having trouble with my leg and nothing was getting done about it. It was going on for years. It was threatening my independence, which, if you grew up in an abusive situation, independence is everything. It's threatening my independence, and I do have an inability to trust, because it's another aspect of growing up in an abusive type household and being around a lot of bad people is trust. So it was a huge deal to me that I was like, man, I could lose my independence. And I already have to a degree. After all, I'm buying mobility scooters. But then I found out that shortly after my sister rejected me, after the first time she heard me cry in 29 years, um, more or less kicked me to the curb. I guess she's got a problem with her leg and she doesn't walk so good. She's a little bit older than me. And I wanted to write her a letter, like a nasty letter, yesterday, but I didn't stoop that low. But I wanted to write her a letter. I was like, I was like, not, like veiled, though. Like, I heard that you're having trouble with your leg and that, you're not walking so well these days. It is, I can understand it's like really scary, worrying about whether you'll be able to walk right, and how you're having your mobility affected, especially with all your other problems, you know, just because I had CRPS and all that. So I was writing something like that that's not overtly like, you're getting what you deserve, you fucking stupid bitch, which is the feelings behind it, you know, because that hurt me worse than anything's hurt me. And I don't know, since 2003. So in 15 years. But yeah, my family destroyed. People are always talking about loyalty to family and stuff like that, man. It's like I told um, somebody else in the family, I was like, my family destroyed my life. My loyalty to my family has destroyed my life. And I knew somebody that was, this was not on the evil side of the family, this was on the good side of the family. But they just like left the whole family behind. And that person's name was Sherry. And that's the house that I kind of like, that was like my home away from home that I lived in there. So she was there briefly. But when she came of age, and went off to college, she was gone, man. She just split. And it's like, I stayed around. I didn't want to abandon. I didn't want to abandon my family like that. And I paid for it. So maybe family should be redefined as the people you can count on, people that got your back, and people that help you and are kind to you. Maybe that's how family should be defined, and not blood. After all, with the evil blood that courses through our veins in my particular clan. That was one of the high points of that movie, though, where the one, I forget what they were talking about. The one brother looks at the other brother. Joaquin Phoenix, his character, looks at John C. Reilly's character and says, "You know, we got our father's evil blood coursing through our veins, don't you? And that's why we're so good at what we do." And it's like, you know, this isn't a benzo thing. This particular video, it's not a benzo thing. It's just because getting drawn into that nonsense yesterday. I'm trying to recover from like a million things. I got a million things to deal with, and it's like I've been under so much pressure with the leg for 4 years and the CRPS for 32 years and the family pressures and stuff. It's like, I was thinking, I was like, maybe should have some sort of weapon in this house. And I was thinking maybe I shouldn't have some sort of weapon in this house because, I can't defend myself properly. But, I don't need to go. I don't know how a court would deal with that if I'd hurt a criminal or kill one. So, but yesterday I was murderous. I mean, I wanted to go out there. And if I even could walk a little bit better, because I bunged my knee up the day before lifting the heavy parts of that scooter, and I knew I couldn't walk, I would have went out there and gotten that guy's face, and that limped out there with a cane and gotten that guy's face and be like, if I ever see you to fuck around here again, and told him what I told the guy that was dealing with the mule. It's like, I told him, like, first of all, my best friend's I was on the Kansas City Police Force for 30 years. I got a card of Sergeant Smith that he told me to call him anytime I need him. Second of all, if I ever see your vehicle here, I'm going to take down your license plate number. And third of all, you don't ever want to come back here again for other reasons. I just want to threaten the dude. It's like, it's kind of hard to be threatening if you can't walk. I mean, if you can stagger out in the hall with a machete, or you can like yell somebody out of your house and stand in a hallway. It's another thing to have to go. I would have had to be walking down steps like one step at a time, like, instead of like doom doom doom. It would be like down the steps with a cane and going out and breaking bad with a guy. But I would have done it if my leg wasn't all messed up yesterday. And what a scourge and what a plague that stuff is. Crack and meth and opiates. The opiate trade around here is so out of control. And it's like just the human despair and crime that comes along with it. I just want to be left alone, man. I just want peace and quiet. Like yesterday, I had a piece of mail. I had ordered some tea. Had a piece of mail sticking out of my mailbox, and I, looked through the blinds, and before I go outside, it's just an old habit, maybe left over from my life being threatened last summer for confronting drug dealers. So, I see like the guy who served in the Afghanistan war. I'm actually related to the dude distantly, so he's got evil blood coursing through his veins too. And I peer through the blinds, and he's pulling up out there, and I'm like, well, I'm not going outside. I'm not dealing with that dude. He's serious PTSD, and he is not right in the head. Um, man, the stuff I could say. Um, yeah, he is. He just, I can't say that stuff, but he's done some stuff that crosses some serious lines, and I'm like, I'm not going out there. I don't have any particular feud going with the guy. He has like a cold war going with me because he thinks that I'm like being aloof and staying away from him when I'm really just being aloof and staying away from everybody and just trying to survive my benzo deal. So I peek out there and I'm like, well, I'm not getting my package now, and I wait, go drink a cup of tea, and I peek out there and he's smoking a cigarette. I don't know if he saw me peeking at him, lifting the blinds, but I'm like, I'm not going out there either. I'm not having anything to do with that dude. I'm sorry that you're messed up in the head and crazy, and I don't know what kind of chemicals that guy's on, but he's using something. And that one's not my landlord's fault. He lives up there now, but that's not my landlord's fault. My landlord rented to his sister. So, um, yeah, I could tell you something really funny. It's just getting too personal. It's too much information. But and then she felt sorry for this guy and foolishly let him move in there, and then he more or less took over the apartment. So this sort of isn't the landlord's fault unless you want to say, well, he already talked to the guy, and the guy is paying my landlord rent. So he's my landlord's cool as long as he's getting rent. He doesn't give a fuck if until the Hun or Jack the Ripper lives here. He don't give a fuck as long as he's getting his rent. We've already established this. So he don't care. That's who's paying him rent now, and I think he took over the apartment. Another reason for me to get the fuck out of here if I can just get my leg healthy enough to where I can take care of myself. Right now, it's a venture like just walking around my house, trying to get to the bathroom. Wake up and about fall over all the time, knocking over printers, you know. Uh, Freaking survival situation. Yeah. I was like that when I was younger, though, man. Like, as far as temper wise. I remember one time, and we were just kids, see, because, you know, I had all my. Your personality is formed like very early in life, and I just grew up around just. That's how you solve a problem, is you fucking bust the guy's head open. So, that's just the way things were. But I remember distinctly, uh, I was young. What age I was, I don't remember. But I remember this kid gave this other kid a concussion in school. And the guy walked in the bathroom while I was in the bathroom, and his face was all red, and he had sweat pouring down his face. His name was Eric. I want to say Eric Wolfinger. He had some weird name like that. But and then I was talking to him, and he wasn't making any sense. And he wasn't making any sense because this other guy named Bud Stebbins uh, just got in a fight with him and just grabbed him by his hair, because everybody had long hair back in the day, and was just banging his head on the concrete on the playground outside of the school. And this is in freaking grade school, because in Catholic school, grade schools go from 1 to 8. There's no middle school or anything like that. So this is like probably in 8th grade. Make us 13, 14 years old, maybe, or something like that. So anyways, this Bud Stebbin kids gave this kid, I wasn't a friend of mine or nothing, but I was like, man, that dude's messed up. It's like his face was all red and there was sweat pouring out his face, and he was like talking gibberish and stuff. He had severe concussion because the Bud Stebbins guy was banging his head on the concrete. Well, later on, we're out there and we're playing around in the playground, because back in the day, we had this thing called recess, because they thought it was important for kids to have a break from, class and run around and, you know, play. But we'll make this a long video, and I'll tell you about a bygone world that doesn't exist anymore. But we used to have recess. You go outside and you can play, and you can play football, pass around footballs, throw frisbees. I used to take knives to school. Nobody gave a fuck. I, I'd throw a knife in my locker. Kid took nunchucks to school who was worried that I was going to beat his ass and just threw nunchucks in the locker in school. And the lockers were right in the classroom because this was a weird, this was a Catholic school, so it was set up weird. So he just carried his nunchucks in, threw them in the locker right in his homeroom classroom. Because the way the school was set up was there was like A and B. So when in the 7th grade, you had an A class and you had a B class. It's a really small school. But anyways, we go out on the playground. We'd have our recesses and stuff. So we were playing we were throwing around one of those playground balls and playing like some weird game of keep away or something like this. And this Bud Stebbins guy who gave the Eric Wolffinger guy the concussion the week before made the tragic error of trying to punch the ball, like football players are taught to do, away from me. But he missed the ball and punched me in the face. So I threw the ball down and I picked him up by the front of his shirt and I slammed him over the grill of a parked car back first. And I still can see him like sliding down. Like I thought I broke his back. That wasn't a fight. That was just that was just me going off. But I remember throwing the ball down. He punched me. He was like trying to punch the ball free. He punched me in the face, and I just grabbed him by the front of his coat because it was cold out, and I just slammed him over the grill of this car, and I just saw him sliding back down, like this look on his face, with his back all bent and shit. And I'm like thinking to myself, I just think I broke his back, and he just laid there in a pool. That wasn't no fight at all. But yeah, there was some bad shit that went down there. So we used to play a game, and we called it Smear the Queer, because back in the 70s, man, political correctness did not exist, but we called it Smear the Queer. The whole object of this game is somebody would bring a football, and you get a bunch of kids together, like all guys, of course. There were some girls that were actually pretty tough in that school that could definitely beat my ass up now. But it was all guys. You take a football, you throw it up in the air, and somebody catches it. He's the queer. So he runs around with the football until somebody tackles him. And then once he gets tackled, he throws the ball up in the air for the next volunteer in this retarded game. And they catch the ball and they run around until somebody tackles them. So we call it Smear the Queer. So we're playing Smear the Queer this one time. And I had an arch enemy by the name of Brett Gaff, because we were two of the bigger kids in the school before the Duffy boys moved in, who later became professional, actually played NFL football. These were huge guys, but they threw off the power balance. It was me and Brett Gaff were at the top of the food chain. But anyways, we're playing Smear the Queer, and I get tackled and I'm on the ground, and the Brett Gaff guy pushes this guy named Mike Ferraro on top of me, and his knee goes down on my glasses and smashes my glasses into my eyebrow, and I get like a boxer's cut over my eyebrow, and there's this blood. I got to keep my eye closed because the blood, it's like a boxer type of deal, and there's this blood going down my face like that. And they used to have, there was the school, I'll just tell you the names, who the hell cares. The school was called St. Joan of Arc, and it was in the shadow of another Catholic school called Central Catholic. You can even look these up if you wanted to, and they still exist. And the Central Catholic people would be like monitors supposedly, but usually they'd be off like making out, sitting on this fence in the field, because there was a parking lot and then there was a field where we'd play Smear the Queer in the grass, and then between the field, then there was the high school, which was Central Catholic. So they mostly be just sitting out on the fence. If there was a boy and a girl out there, it'd be making out and stuff, not paying attention to these little rotten kids running around. And but that day they paid attention because I got up and my whole face was just blood. And I still remember that's the first time. Yeah, that's the first time like I ever had a girl like uh, felt a girl's breasts and had her arm around me and stuff because she like put her this high school girl like put her arm around me and stuff. I don't know how old I was at the time, and I was like, hey, I can feel her body, and it's like, hey, I like this. But in the meantime, I got blood streaming down my face, and she's like, just keep your eyes closed, just keep your eyes closed. And me being an old hand at violence, all I'm thinking I was like, titty, and her breast pressed against the side of me and stuff. And she was helping me across the field, across the parking lot into the school. But yeah, that game got banned. You know, we weren't allowed to play in it. Play it. I don't know if we were allowed to play in that field anymore. But yeah, we would come in like with mud on us and stuff like that. Things were just so different, man, than they are nowadays. We had our recess. Our recess was brutalizing each other in violence and fights, and you gotta let kids blow off some steam if you're gonna teach them their ABCs and their one, two, threes. So hey, but I remember I gave that Brett Gaff guy a horrible beating that one time because there was a girl named Julie Sarno, and he picked up a rock that was really just like a piece of it was bad because it had pores in it. It was like a piece of asphalt, but it was porous. I actually remember the rock somehow. How I remember the rock, I don't know, but I do. But I mean, it was like uh, it was like a getting hit with a tangelo, except for it was more egg shaped. It's like more like, yeah, it's about like getting hit with a small egg. But he threw it at this girl, and he missed, and he cracked me in the side of the head with it. And if I could turn around, I could actually show you the scar I got from it. But he hits me, and I go down to my knees, and I don't know, my head split open. I still got the scar from it, like right here. If my hair is shaved down, you can actually see the scar from it. But blood's gushing out of my head split open. But I'm blanking and stuff, and I'm down on my knees, and I'm on Queer Street, and I turn around and look, and I'm looking like, who did this to me. And I look, and I see Brett Gaff, and I can tell, like, he's got this look on his face, and guilt's just written, and guilt and fear and shit just written all over it, you know. And I look at him, of course, with that bad blood, that evil blood kind of look, and he just takes off running. I get up and I run after him, and he's like in fear of his life, like full pussy mode, more in political incorrectness, and he's trying to run into the building to get in around some adults for protection. But right before he gets to the doors that are right beside the principal office, I tackle him on the concrete. I put one knee on one of his arms and one knee on the other arms, and it's right hands to the face, bouncing his fucking head off of the concrete. His only recourse in this fight is because my crotch is like right here, and I got his arms pinned so he can't do shit, and I'm trying to beat him to death basically. And the only thing he could do to fight back is he reaches up and he bites me. He bites me right next to my balls, like right on the inside of my thigh, and that broke, that was like throwing water on a dog, man. That just got me out of my bloodlust, and I was like, whoa, what the, I just got my about got my balls bitten off. So like that like stopped me from punching him and let me ease up my weight enough to where he was able to, he's about the same size as me, where he's able to force himself off of me and run into the office. Meanwhile, I'm wearing a green shirt and I got like a blood stain like all the way down to my stomach from my head because I just had blood like running out of my head onto the shirt. Oh, a fun, great childhood, lovely childhood memories. So I go in there, and they look at me and they're like, you know, I didn't get in trouble that day. They were like, holy shit, more or less. But it's a Catholic school, so they weren't allowed to say, holy shit. But they put something on my head to stop the bleeding. And then, they were like, what happened? And I said, well, he hit me in the head with a rock. And then, I told him the story. And unfortunately, I told them that I got bit. And they're worried about me getting a tetanus shot or whatever like that. And, this takes on a whole more ominous thing in today's society. This is in like 1977 or something like that. And the male teacher says I got to see the bite, and he took me in the bathroom and he made me drop my pants and not my underwear, and I showed him the bite, and it looked like a horse's bite, but it didn't break the skin. But he bit me so hard through my pants that it almost did break the skin. And it looked like I was bit by a horse before. It looked like a horse's bite, because they don't have really sharp teeth. And you could see like where the skin was peeled back, and you could see like red spots where like there's one layer of skin left. And he's like, "Oh, you'll be all right," because I think he was worried about me needing a tetanus shot or something like that from getting bitten. But yeah, that was grade school. That's only some of the shit that went down in grade school. Uh, but then I got to high school, and that's when that guy literally almost tried to kill me and was kicking my head like a football, to use my dad's phrase. And so that was like a couple years before that. But I remember we went to school, and yeah, we kept going to the same school. Me and my arch enemy, the rock guy, Brett Gaff. And let me drink a little coffee because my voice is going. If I got you this far. So, anyways, we're sitting at this cafeteria table. There's a bunch of guys there, and he's sitting across from me. And I don't know. Somebody was talking about throwing stuff, And he looked at me, and he said, "Hey, Steve," but he used my last name. He's like, "You remember that time I hit you in the head with a rock? Man, that was funny. That rock must have sailed. It hit your head, and it must have sailed up in the air about 15, 20 feet." And I looked at him as cold-bloodedly as I could, and I said, "Do you remember what happened after you hit me with that rock?" His eyes looked down, and he's like, "Yeah." I don't even know why he brought that shit up. I was like, "You want to shut the fuck up right now, or I'm coming across this cafeteria table at you, and we're going to have round two. And you didn't do so good in round one." God only knows if I would have got that spinal tumor when I was 16, what I would have been like. You know, that mellows you out, that almost dying shit, learning how to walk and getting all reconstructed and Frankenstein back together and stuff. All those experiences kind of mellow you out. Those almost dying and having screws put in your head and all that stuff. God only knows what I would have been like. I probably would have been like one of my uncles. I might have a couple of notches on my belt, a couple of how they put in that one show, a couple of pelts in my bag. I might know where a couple of bodies are buried. Who knows what I would have been like. So um, it was weird because I was like such a peaceful person. I still am, but that violence is in there, and it almost come out yesterday. It almost come out yesterday in a big way. I was close to losing it, and the guy was like, he's like, just don't get upset, And he's like, I'll tell the guy. He's like backing out of the apartment and stuff. But and this is off of some crippled guy. If I was actually healthy, because I used to be a big guy back in the day. 6'1" was a good height back in the '70s. That was considered a fairly large person. You know. Uh, but now I don't think it is. I think the average height in the United States is like 5'10", and there's tons of people my height walking around. But I was considered a big guy, and I had that crazy streak in me and stuff. But it's like I wasn't. It was weird because I was like cowardly. I considered myself cowardly. But if you pushed me past a certain point, or you hit me in the head with a rock, or you make me deal with drug people or stuff like that, that all goes away. You put a gun to my head, that all goes away. But like I'm such a pussycat, my everyday demeanor, it's like people don't believe that. And like I've actually been with people, and they got this look on their face like, oh, this guy's talking shit. And I said, what do you think? I'll call him Jimmy. What do you think, Jimmy? And he looks at him and he said, you don't know. He just looked at the people that are looking at me dubiously. It's like, you don't know this guy. You don't know. It's just that I got that madness in me that just goes beyond logic and reason, to the point where I actually would have hobbled out with their cane and like got in the guy's face and said, "Get the fuck out of here." I don't know. I figured I might as well do something. I make an hour and 11 uh, video. But yeah, I am a really mixture. I'm quite a melange of. There seems like there's a couple people in there, because I'm pretty like timid and cowardly. Like I'm peeking out the window. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with this PTSD guy. It's like I'd rather just avoid him. I'd just rather avoid trouble and stuff like that. Meanwhile, if I ever had any trouble, real trouble with that dude, there would be, yeah, it'd be a whole different story. You know, be a whole different thing. And I'm done with this drug nonsense. As long as I'm living here, if I know about any fucking crack business developing, the fact that there was an actual mule outside my building yesterday, it's like it's getting my blood hot thinking about it right now. And like I said, I originally I thought I was loaning this person $20 to get drunk. They were just honest with me, and they were like, gonna buy some cocaine with it. So I already said, I said, well, that's on you. I said, but that shit ain't gonna help you. I said, it's gonna make things worse for you. And then I got this guy gonna run around trying to, yeah, and I told, I don't give a fuck if that dude was insulted, but I told the boat dude, I said, I don't believe, and I included him in it. I was like, I don't believe nothing I hear anymore from anybody. I didn't say anybody in your household, but he knew what I meant. I said, I don't believe nothing I hear from nobody no more. So I don't know what the straight story is on what was going on today. I don't know what the deal is here. I said, I don't believe nothing I hear coming out of anybody's mouth anymore. And I said, and you know what? As a matter of fact, I am in such a vile mood that it's best we part company right now. He's like, okay, because he knows me. And I just hung up the phone without saying goodbye. So yesterday was a fun day for me. But I did learn something interesting, like I said, about why the Palms was the Palms, the Bucket of Blood bars, and how the police used to be in Canton in the '70s is just utter brutality. And yeah, like I don't ask he's my best friend. I don't know what he thinks about me, but he's my best friend. Um, but I never ask him to tell me cop stories because I figure, so anybody that's a cop, that's all anybody wants to hear about, all them interesting, you know, cop stories. But he tells me shit. And I think I might hear more shit just because I'm not asking him about it. He just talks about it. I just let him talk and say what he wants to say. I don't say, the only thing I asked him ever specifically about being a police officer that I remember, where I was like, it wasn't in the flow of the conversation. I said, what do you think about this, like, the new policies they have as far as police brutality? I mean, after, in the wake of the Rodney King thing, and like the way they're so strict on you guys, not knowing how he would answer. And he goes, oh, it's good that all that stuff happened. He's like, you have no idea what things were like back in the old days. And then he proceeded to tell me several stories that enlightened me about how things were back in the old days, meaning the late 60s, in the into the 70s, and into the 80s. And one of his first days on the job, he was trying to handcuff a suspect, and the guy was struggling with him, and he was a junior officer, and the guy that was supposed to be, you know, teaching him, he's like, you're doing that all wrong. Just back off. He said he took a homemade sap out of his pocket, smacked the guy in the head, and knocked him goofy. And he said, now cuff him, because he had him bent over a car, and the guy's struggling and stuff. You know, and he's fighting him while he's cuffing him. He's like, no, no, back off. He said, that's not how you do it. Smack. And, hit him in the head. Probably gave him a mild concussion and said, that's how you do it. Now cuff him. And then he had this other story that he told me, like, besides the jumping up and down on the guy, where the guy's actually trying to murder a guy, cops actually trying to murder a guy by, he said, you won't believe this, but it's coming from him, so I believe every word he says, because real strict Christian dude. He's like, the guy's jumping up and down on the guy's neck. He's already beat the living hell out of him, and he's jumping up and down on his neck, trying to break his neck. I was like, he wasn't kicking him? And he goes, no, he was jumping on his neck. I was like, I've never even heard of that. I said, I think I saw that in an episode of like Hill Street Blues, but that wasn't even the Robert De Niro stomp from Goodfellas. That was just, he said he was jumping, trying to use all his 200 plus pound weight, trying to break the guy's neck. He's like he that's the way he started out telling me that story. He's like, I think I prevented a murder one day, because we got there with the siren wailing, and we got there in a hurry and responded to the call quickly. But he talked about how it is being a cop. He's like, it used to tick him off because he took his job seriously. Other cops they're in it for a paycheck, man. They don't want no hassle. They don't want the violence. They don't want, they don't want to be shot at. They don't want to, they don't want the mess. So he's like, you get the call and it's a bad area or a bad people. And he said the speedometer would go from 45 to 30, 45 to 20, or they'd take a left. And he said they need to take a right, he's like, the guy was deliberately take a circuitous route so that they wouldn't be in the middle of the mess. They just have to clean up the pieces. It's good to know. But yeah, he said he never had any dealings in the Palms because that wasn't his jurisdiction. And then he explained how it was sectioned off, how different police forces had different jurisdictions, and that was like, oh God, I wish I could think of a good example from the Old West, but that was like a no man's land where that bar was. And there was only 2 patrol cars responsible for it, and neither one of them wanted anything to do with it. Neither one of the owners of the bar. I said, there was a guy, he's dead now, so I can talk about him, but named Dave Garrison. I was like, did you ever hear of Dave Garrison? He's like, oh yeah. And he was one of them guys like Marvin Hagler that you just couldn't knock out, So my dad used to tell me this all the time. He's like, whenever they got a call that was involving Dave Garrison, He's like, they didn't send one cruiser, they didn't send two cruisers, they sent at least three. He said they wanted 6 cops to fight that guy. He said because you couldn't hurt him, but he could hurt you. And he was a big dude, and he did not, he's an insane person, did not care, you know. And also, as my dad said, my dad's, one of his expressions was, he knows where a couple bodies are buried. He'd say that about various people, and then that just meant that, like, they killed people before. That's the way he would say they killed somebody before. He'd be like, they know where a couple of bodies are buried. That didn't mean that they helped out, you know, or got recruited at gunpoint to dig a grave. That means they killed somebody and buried them. So there's a lot of violent talk for this early in the morning, man. I don't know what to label this little diatribe as. This little Johnny Carson monologue, with very few jokes in it. Uh, uh, Violence and evil blood, violence as hereditary. I wish I had help naming this one. But yeah. Yeah, maybe it's a blessing that I got all fucked up physically, because I had that in me. That I would just, it's nothing to be proud of, really. It's just a fact. It scares me. It actually scares me. I was scared with the machete, but I wasn't scared that I was going to get hurt. I was scared that I was going to kill somebody. It would scare me when I would lose my temper because I didn't know how far it would go or if I would ever regain control of myself. I knew I wasn't going to, like with that kid. I was beating that kid up. I was like, I knew I wasn't going to stop. If he didn't almost bite my balls off, I wasn't going to stop until I was tired, And then I met somebody like that and got sucker punched by him in high school. I got my hands up to about right here, and then his fist come over top, clocked me, and I saw every star in the heavens, and he knocked me flying backwards. He had 50 pounds on me, though. He knocked me flying backwards, and I slid down the wall, and by the time I woke up, man, I was getting brutalized. So, I met somebody that was just like me in a way. Anyways, that's enough bullshit. That's, I say bullshit because this is like bullshitting as in like just conversational something to listen to, because every word that I've told you here is true. It's not bullshit. Um, if if I shaved my hair down, I could show you the scar where my head was split open. If the camera was better, I could show you the scar in my eyebrow from when that one kid pushed Mike Ferraro on top of me, and I had glasses on and smashed the glasses. Because glasses used to be made out of glass, too. That's another thing. They make them out of this plastic now. And split my eye open like a boxer. I'm not here to tell lies. So when I say bullshit, I mean it's just bullshitting. It's just like talking about stuff that happened. But that stuff that happened yesterday, it's not going to happen no more, because I'm not playing around with any of that crap no more, man. It's like Sergeant Smith will be called in. I got his card. I will take down license plates, and I did turn vigilante there for a while with the machete, but I don't have to anymore. I got that guy. I wrote that guy a thank you email, and I like to call him and talk to him sometime. But I will call him and I will talk to him if I see that truck out there again. And if any drug business develops in here that I know about, it's getting as Barney Fife would say, nipped in the bud. Because I just can't have that while I'm living here. The thing about moving is like wherever you go, there you are. So I'm going to be taking myself with me and my problems, and wherever you go, people are the same. But I want a new landlord, and I want to be away from the house that I moved in, the neighborhood to be around. I want to be further away from those people and their problems. Um, but you know, there were bad people in other places that I lived. There's always bad people. There's always stories that I could tell you that are not good stories. Um, it's just a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff, like I said, a lot of stuff could happen to you in 51 years. This video is already too long. It's just an excuse for me to talk and tell morbid stories and drink some rather poorly made coffee and wait for this, what you're seeing right now coming in through the window. Day is broken, and getting up at 4:30. I knew I already had a bad start to this day, so I don't know. I hate taking naps, but this might be one of those days where I have to do that. As far as um, the benzo situation, I have said almost nothing about that during this entire, hopefully entertaining mini movie that I just made you. What would this be? What would these things be that I do? Like a one-man play? I mean, what are they? Just a guy talking? I don't know. Or unscripted? I don't know what it would be. But I did buy some more books this morning, and I actually bought George Orwell's Why I Can Write. Not Why I Can Write, but it's called Why I Write. He wrote it later in his life, and just because, like, I've heard the quote. If you look the quote up on the internet that I use in my book, it's like phrased in one way, and then I looked at this documentary and it's phrased in another way, and I'm like, wait a minute, which one's correct? So I'm gonna pay $5 to find out because I don't trust the internet. It's like, which is the actual, which is the real deal? So I'm just gonna buy the book. I'll read the book, but I'm just buying the book just to find that one quote because it's part of it's oh, the little blurbs and quotes they have at the beginning of books. I don't know what you call them. I wouldn't call it. I call it a preface, but I wouldn't call it a preface. I don't know those little ornamental things. I got one from a book I read called Black Elk Speaks: The Sacred Ways of a Lakota, where he says a person can talk all day, but only say one word. And I guess the word for this is blood, or another word, violence. If you can mix those two words together, some sort of hereditary violence or lies within me that's a deep part of my character, and I just have to be aware of it and careful of it. And it takes a lot to bring it out. It's not like I'm not like a fly off the handle type of dude. Yeah. All right, that's usual train wreck. Denoma, I found out is the way you pronounce that. I pronounced it just the way it was spelled because I'm an uneducated person who's had 9.5 years of schooling. That's more like 7 years of schooling. They asked me, I had an interview, and they asked me, what level of education are you? And I said 10th grade, but really it's 9.5 because I did a half day in the 10th grade when I was walking around with a walker after they pulled a spinal tumor on me. So it's really officially 9.5 years of school, but I missed so much school. My grade level is more like seventh grade education. So the proper pronunciation of a word I use in another video that means the unknotting of the plot is denouement. It's a French word, but I pronounced it denouement. But my denouement on this was, or my denouement on this was just fucking horrible. And yeah, blood. Yeah, that would be the that would be what Black Elk would say that this. Instead of talking for an hour and a half, he would just say blood. Until next time, goodbye.